So we're having a series of hearings in Tower Hamlets. There was a massive petition. I think in total 2,500 people signed that they believe that people of protective characteristics were discriminated against, and they wanted the council to investigate it and implement the safeguarding policy to put a halt to the program, to safeguard people with protective characteristics and investigate the complaint. That wasn't accepted by the powers that be. In Tower Hamlets, it's one man rule. Unfortunately, regardless how you see it. So the mayor called all the shots. So he didn't agree with that. So what we're having is a cross-party panel. I'm a Labour councillor with a independent Tory and a Lib Dem councillor. We're basically putting a panel together to go area by area to have a look at, just listen to residents, especially residents with protective characteristics, to see how they feel aggrieved in terms of the way the consultation's been run or the way the schemes have been implemented. And we're going to kick off with Wapping on the 25th of February. But Wapping resonates with you because Wapping is one of the schemes that you looked at in terms of bringing this legal challenge, and it was one of the first schemes to sort of like stop licensed taxi drivers using the Wapping busgate, because I know that area, there's a lot of elderly residents, a lot of people with protected characteristics that are reliant, that traditionally have been reliant on taxis using the local authority scheme. Was Wapping something that that you looked at yourselves in UTAG, the Wapping busgate?
Wapping was probably the catalyst to much bigger things. And in essence, I spoke to you off air about the another group of taxi drivers, very, very good friends of ours, and you know, they do all they can to protect the trade and help our disabled and other passengers. They demonstrated for nearly 14 months against road closures in Tottenham Court Road, London Bridge, and then it ended up in Parliament Square. So we could get the attention of not just the politicians, but the disabled lobbies, because it is affecting them well. And we had some disabled people come, a guy called Mick Scarlett, who was very, very supportive. He can see that the damage that will be done, especially to disabled people that could not either make the journey or it would cost them more money.
And I think that's the discussion I've had with people. Like a lot of people, like no one's against a better air pollution. We need to reduce air pollution. No one is saying that streets shouldn't be safer, but not at the expense of other people's rights. So the way I explain it is like the way we run our society is a bit like the legal system. When you go to court, you got the Crown prosecution up there. So if you're down there as a defendant, you get a duty solicitor to bring your case to the level, and then you could argue everybody has a fair crack at the whip. And that's how our society, the Equalities Act and the anti-discrimination law is like that, in the sense that it makes sure that people who are disadvantaged due to the accident of birth or other unfortunate events in their lives, that they get an even playing field. And that's what it is. That's what this legislation is all about. That everybody gets an even playing field, and you get a fair crack at the whip. That's what it is. It's not giving people special treatment. It's just basically evening up the playing field. And whatever we do, it shouldn't be at the expense of the most disadvantaged in our society. So yes, let's reduce air pollution, but let's bring everyone together, and not at the expense of the most vulnerable people having an adverse impact on their lives. Now, Angela, if people are interested in finding out more or about your organization, about the court case, or how they can help, how do they get in touch with you, or where do they go to get more information, or how can they support UTAG?
Can I just finish firstly what I was going to talk about? So, guys that were sort of organising the demonstrations, when Wapping came into force, they contacted myself and Trev and said, look, what can be done about Wapping? Because this is a thin end of the wedge. We've got, as you know, 74% of the residents there in the consultation voted to let tax in. But it was just, really 74%, will ignore that. And as we know, consultations have to be done, but they don't have to be adhered to. So we go through the QC.
That's democracy in Tower Hamlets. It's a different interpretation democracy. Sometimes you can have all the residents on one side, but if one person says something else, that's what happens. That's what I've been told. That's what I've been told.
The North Korean democracy.
And if that person happens to live in Wapping, then his opinions matter the most.
Absolutely. So we went to see the QC, and because it was experimental traffic, it took 3 months to power it. We only had 6 weeks. We were coming up to Christmas, and so we only had about 2.5 to lodge everything, and that was not enough time to get all the paperwork in, and then we didn't really have the group that approached it didn't really have the funds to just take that bus gate on. So we had, and then we thought, right, we are going to identify a scheme that we must go after. It's going to happen, and it did. And just before I come on to your last point, if I can just, we know that this is being pushed through on other agendas, and none of us want our family or our kids to have polluted air, and my trade is striving to go, over 30% of our fleet is now electric, and about 40% is 35% is Euro 6, which are the cleanest exhaust pipe emissions out there. We do have some 5s and Euro 4s, but they are being decommissioned because of the age limit. So we are trying, and we want clean air, and we want cyclists protected. We don't want to see cyclists put in danger. But of course, when you close these roads, not just to cabs, but to other traffic, and they tend to ignore the network management duty, and the overflow goes to already very busy roads where maybe the less affluent people live, that's just moving the pollution on. And surely that in itself, when you put in that extra traffic, that endangers cyclists as well. So it's not making cyclists any safer in that part. It's just moving the problem, not addressing it. So about COVID, in my judgment, the flaws identified were symptomatic of an ill-considered response which sought to take advantage of the pandemic to push through on an emergency basis without consultation, radical changes, plans to transform parts of central London into one of the largest carbon zones in any capital city in the world. The scale and ambition of the proposals and the manner in which they were described strongly suggest that the Mayor and TfL intended that these schemes would become permanent once the temporary was expired. However, there is no evidence to suggest that the pandemic will be permanent. So, and that seems to be the attitude of the other boroughs. Oh, it's COVID. Oh, it's social distancing. Oh, it's pollution. Yes, we agree with you with pollution, but as you say, don't take a hammer to crack a nut. There is a balance to reach which at which the minimum amount of people will suffer the consequences. But I would say to the good people of Tower Hamlets, and we have members there, you can take these people on. Please do.
Definitely.
Absolutely. You're more power to you. And as you know, Sutton has removed their, after our judgment removed it, there was a case management hearing last week where the Hackney, Chiswick, Hounslow, Lambeth were there. Hackney, unfortunately, was refused permission on the horrendous Hackney Roads group. They refused permission, but permission was granted to a little lad who has to go to a special school, and the group that's backing him went on his legitimate expectation, because the legitimate expectation is not just for the cab trade. We have our legitimate expectations. Other people have theirs, which are being just trampled on. So I would say to your people, it is possible to take on the big boys and win. And I wish everyone the best of luck, because it affects all of us. You know, more so the working class and the less affluent, because things are being pushed in your direction, in my direction. And the analogy that I use, and the boroughs may not like it, but I make no apologies, that in the 1850s, in the Great Stink, when the sewerage became so toxic in London, it's when Parliament decided to engage the Joseph Bazalgette to build the sewers. And where did they decide to send it? Not in London, down to the east, where the poor, because that's what you do with, and this is just history repeating itself. It's unforgivable. I wish you all the luck in the world with your fight. And if anyone is interested in what UTAG are doing, we got a very comprehensive website. All it is www.utag.london. You find everything on there. They can find the judgments, and the lawyers in the case management hearing last week were quoting from our judgment. It's having the ripple effect is now turning into a much bigger wave. And anyone who in Tower Hamlets who wishes to take on, I would urge them to have judgment, and you can do it. Use our judgment, which, although it's up for appeal, it's still live at the moment.
I just want to do a clarification. I know there's a time limit on judicial review, but you can have leave to basically apply late. So there was a recent judicial review against someone took Tower Hamlets Council, and it's going to be heard, I think, this month, and I might get a witness summons to it for the plaintiffs. But they got leave because they explained that there were circumstances that made that they had to apply things. So yes, there is normally a time limit, but you could get leave to apply, but you need to have really good reasons for that. But I just want to say thanks, Angela, for doing this interview. It's been quite inspirational, kind of. You've taken on the Moby Dick, the whale of London politics, TFL, and now it's up to the residents to take on the minnows, the local authorities, kind of ish. So no, I just want to say thank you for it, and it's been really inspirational. And we look with interest on the Court of Appeal judgment. But thank you again, Angela. And guys, if anybody wants to find out more about UTAG, it's www.utag.london, and you can have everything there. But thank you. Any final word, Angela, before just for our viewers?
Yeah, just that people ask what the next steps are going to be for we are waiting with bated breath for whether or not TfL are granted permission to seek leave to appeal. As you know, there have been refused one from Mrs. Justice Lang, and she said, in essence, I can see no reason why leave to appeal should be granted. And she further went on to say, I can see no realistic prospect of an appeal succeeding. But naturally, for a political, they're going to go for the appeal. They have put in their grounds for appeal. We have lodged our grounds of resistance. We've both asked for the hearing to be expedited so we could just draw a line on it, under it rather, and see if we can just get some semblance of normality back to this madness. But as I say, I wish Tower Hamlets the best of luck, and we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. We want to reduce pollution. We want to see cyclists safe. We really do. We're not enemies, but we must come to a considered and workable middle ground. Otherwise, it get worse. And thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to speak with you.